In the 20 years I've been working with adult survivors of what I named family scapegoating abuse, one of the biggest stuck points can be getting over that hurdle of the injustices done in the sense of what I call righteous rage associated with that sense of injustice. But guess what? You can get over that hurdle, and that's what I'll be talking about today in Beyond Family Scapegoating Abuse. So stick around. Welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca Mandeville, psychotherapist and family systems researcher. And I wanted to start off by sharing a dream that one of the participants in one of my FSA research studies, a qualitative study that I did on scapegoating, that they sent in as part of their response to one of my survey questions. And I wonder if any of you can relate to, if not the details of the dream, the feelings that go along with the dream. I dreamed a group of hooligans, criminals it seemed, were going to sue me. They sent someone to serve me with a notice of their intent to file a lawsuit against me. I was served with this notice while I was walking to my car in an underground parking lot. I somehow knew they were going to serve me, and I decided I had to get away from them before they could force me into participating in something that would negatively impact my life, because I knew I had not done anything wrong. Whatever they were suing me for was a made-up pack of lies. The person attempting to serve me was now chasing me through the parking lot, but somehow I got away. And the next thing I knew, I was hiding in a hotel room. I called someone on the phone for help. I knew intuitively that if I was served and drawn into this unfair lawsuit, that my life might be destroyed. I thought to myself, how unfair it all was, as the entire lawsuit against me was based on lies. I knew I had committed no crime and was innocent, and they were the bad actors in the scenario. What stories had they made up about me? I wondered if I would have to hide out for the rest of my life to escape my accusers. I suddenly felt both enraged and helpless at the same time, for I seemed to have no voice and no say in what was occurring. I had not done anything wrong, yet I was going to be forced to defend myself just the same via this lawsuit. How could I defend myself if I did not know what my supposed crime or violation was? I was crying uncontrollably and unable to share my side of things, except to say, I worked so hard to become whole. Now they want to break me again. Even in my distraught state, I knew that by crying, I was not representing myself well, and the judge would not be able to understand me. But I just couldn't seem to stop the flood of emotion I was experiencing. It was like I was in some sort of Kafkaesque nightmare. How could such an unfair, unjust thing be happening to me when I had not done anything wrong that I was aware of? And that's the end of the dream. So those of you watching this who are in that family scapegoat role, I'm sure you had to be identifying with so many of the emotional contents of the dream, if not the actual situation. And interestingly enough, there is actually a book by the author Franz Kafka called The Trial, and it is very similar to this dream. And in fact, I'm reading it right now, and I'm only about a third of the way through. But the character in this novel is charged with a crime, but they never tell him what the crime is, and the story goes on from there. And if you know Kafka's work, it is very bizarre and surreal. So as I said at the beginning of this video, this sense of injustice is really powerful and can feel overwhelming for many adult survivors of family scapegoating abuse. And people who don't understand may even say things like, just get over it, or don't get stuck in the anger. Um, you're sounding like a victim. That's not going to be helpful for you. And you may even see that in the comments here sometimes, even in my channel. And although they're well-meaning, they're certainly not trauma-informed, in that we all have our own individual unique pathway of healing. Many people walk into my private practice who are scapegoated by family, feeling this sense of injustice, even if they're not fully recognizing it yet, maybe have trouble accessing that righteous rage that I mentioned, and being able to talk about it, process it, or even know that they have a right, and it would be expected that they would feel a sense of injustice and anger, righteous rage around what's happened to them in their family. In a recent video I did on 10 rules that I identified in families that scapegoat, 10 unspoken rules, and I will link you to it up there where it says info, and you can watch that video. I mentioned that injustice can get wrapped up with toxic shame, with anger, with grief, all kinds of things, and it can become kind of like a big mound or hill that someone's stuck and just can't seem to get past. And often they are ruminating, going over in their minds things that were said to them, things that happened, things they said, wish they could have said, playing scenes over and over in their mind. And the good news is you can get over that hill. You can get over that stuck point in recovering from family scapegoating abuse, or FSA as I call it. And I did write an article on this that I'm going to put in the pinned comment below this video. I'll put it in the video description as well. And I can go over that with you briefly here. But there's some key points that I make in this article that I'll share with you here. And this has been very helpful for my clients that I'm working with in my private FSA recovery coaching practice. And I think they could be helpful for you as well. If you feel that you're carrying that sense of injustice and you're not having it recognized, it's diminished or dismissed, flat out denied, even close friends couldn't possibly understand really if they haven't gone through this kind of severe scapegoating. So I will lay these out for you briefly, and in future videos I will talk about those in more detail. So if you haven't subscribed yet to my channel and you want to learn more about family scapegoating abuse and the typical types of things that can block someone's forward progression in their recovery, why don't you take a moment to subscribe? If you're getting something out of this video, hit the thumbs up. And that will also help it show up on other people's feed who might need to hear this message. So here are some of the steps that I take my clients through in my psychotherapy and coaching practices when they have reported being scapegoated in their family, or we have discovered that through our work together. Sometimes that becomes pretty clear, even if the client's not fully able to recognize it due to that defense mechanism of denial. Step one would be to acknowledge and embrace your anger as being justified and valid. And this gets into recognizing that sometimes, especially if you have the fawning trauma response and not the fight response, you may have learned to shove anger down as a survival mechanism in your family. So you may have had trouble accessing it. And a part of recovering from SSA is to, in appropriate and safe ways, really, really embrace that anger. That's why I renamed it Righteous Rage. Take the shame out of it. What happened to you was angering, It's not something any child or adult child should go through in a family. And so you very well should feel anger and feel it fully. And this is where it's helpful to be involved with a community or support group, a forum where you can, again, safely express that anger with people who have been through similar experiences and who can understand and validate your anger as being healthy and an important part of the recovery process. The second step that I like to introduce to my clients very early on in our work together would be practicing self-compassion. And if you're an empath type, you may feel great compassion for others. You may have even great insight and understanding into your family. If there's intergenerational trauma, you may understand why people behave the way they do. They may not have as much psychological awareness as you. They may never have therapy. But often I find empaths may not be turning that same light of compassion onto themselves. Step 3 might sound like a strange step, but I invite my clients to ask themselves, what is most important? Accessing injustice is very important, but what's even more important is that you're willing to look at and accept painful truths about your family and what may have happened to you in your family. So being able to recognize the wrongs done to you by people you may actually wanted at one time to be connected to, that you care about, that you wanted to feel at home with, that they are not able to treat you in a manner that a family member deserves to be treated. These are sobering truths that your scapegoating is unlikely to ever be recognized by any of your family members, maybe a more observed, detached cousin or second cousin relative who gets it, but in general, it's rare. So being able to accept that you will not get justice from within your family is a critical step in moving toward what I call radical acceptance, which is when the true deep liberation from the effects of family scapegoating can start to manifest. The fourth step is really just information I pass on to the client, and it's very important information. Many people come to me saying that they don't know how they'll ever be able to stop ruminating over the past, over things that have happened to them in their family, things that were said, things that were done. So what I like to tell my clients is that sort of rumination actually can be a symptom of complex trauma. The amygdala gets fired up there in the middle part of the brain, and the rumination, strangely, can in itself be a trauma response. Because if you're thinking about injustice and going over all this details of what happened in the past in your mind, that might keep you from thinking about, say, important decisions you might need to make around your family so that you can no longer be the victim of scapegoating. Number 5, we know that mindfulness practices can be helpful for complex trauma symptoms, can be helpful to help with thinking back in the past more often than you'd like, because mindfulness practices help bring us into the moment. And I put down some links there in the article in regard to the different types of mindfulness practices you might engage in. There are many. And I think now, I haven't looked recently, there may even be people writing about trauma-informed mindfulness practices. So you might also do a little Google search and see what comes up, since I wrote my book a few years ago now, and there could be some more resources out there for you. I hope you got something out of this brief discussion of injustice, and that you check out the linked article in the pinned comment, where you can look at the 5 steps, read about them in more detail. See you next time.